Kehinde Richard Oluwaseun is a statistics graduate from the Federal College of Animal Health and Production Technology, Ibadan, with a strong academic and professional foundation in data science, software development, and research. His undergraduate experience included serving as a collaborator at the University of Ibadan Laboratory for Interdisciplinary Statistical Analysis, where he contributed to the impactful data projects across both academic and industry domains. Currently, he serves as a data scientist and full-stack developer at the SQI College of ICT, Osogbo Campus, Osun State, while completing his NYSC service year as a Batch C Stream 2 core member under Osogbo local government area. In this role, he supports the development of digital systems and applies data-driven insight to enhance innovation, efficiency, and decision-making in tech education. In addition to his formal assignments, he works as a freelance data analyst, researcher, and academic writer, providing scholars with expertise in data interpretation, research design, and academic writing. He considers his work as a form of service, using his skills to create value with integrity and excellence. His career is fueled by passion for knowledge, problem solving, and ethical innovation, with a commitment to leveraging data and technology to drive impactful contributions in research, education, and policy development. Ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding applause, please make welcome Kehinde Richard Oluwaseun.
Proverb 14:34 says, "Righteousness exalts a nation, while sin condemns many people." Now, this verse is a timeless reminder for us that the strength of a nation does not lie in its resources, but rather the integrity of its governance and the faithfulness and righteousness of the people. Good morning, distinguished dignitaries, panel of judges, my fellow core members, all protocols duly observed. My name is Kehinde Richard Oluwaseun, and it is an honor for me to be here today to defend my essay titled Tax Reforms and Economic Growth in Nigeria, Evaluating the Path to Sustainable Development and Prosperity. At times, I question how a nation blessed with oil, fertile land, and the shared brilliances of the people still bleeds economically. One would think all this would have led Nigeria to be a nation where no one goes to bed hungry, but yet, here we are, the giant of Africa and the largest country in Africa by population and by economic, measured by GDP, still struggling to meet up with basic developmental goals. And we speak of unemployment, bad, corrupted administration, injustice, and at the heart of all this issue is one major but often overlooked factor, which is our tax system. Principally, taxation is the blood of any functioning government, and according to some researchers like shown in 2023, it is what we as citizens provide to enhance the growth of a nation. Some economists like Ruff in 2023 to define it to be a compulsory levy enacted by the government on the people to fund public needs. This is well aligned with biblical preachings too. We can see from Romans 13 verse 6, when Apostle Paul was writing to the Christian believers in Rome, he urges them to pay taxes because the authorities are God's servants who have dedicated their time into serving. Jesus himself justifies this in Luke 20:25 when the people tried to trap him with their question, asking him, "Is it lawful to give to Caesar?" He responded them wisely, telling them that you should give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but to God what belongs to God. Now, these verses are like justifications for us that taxation is not just a moral, it's not just a civic duty, it is also a moral duty rooted in biblical preachings as well. And many Nigerians believe that taxation, they see taxation as a burden which they try to evade. And why is that? We no longer trust the system. We believe this system has been compromised and corrupt. And this disjoint relationship between the government and the taxpayer has economic effect, in the sense that it has been said that an inclusive, equity, and efficient taxation system provides the government investment to invest into economic drivers. Therefore, there is need to restructure and refactor and make some reforms in this tax system. And what is tax reform? Tax reform is the conscious change of the existing tax system, laws, and policies of a state. And the goal of any tax reform is to create sustainable prosperity. What is sustainable prosperity? Simply put, this is a stage where economic growth corresponds with the existing need of a nation. And this value is in line with biblical teachings of justice, stewardship, and righteousness. We can see from the era of King Solomon in Proverbs 23 verse 4, when you observe that the people are wearing the same house to get rich, it teaches us in verse 4 and 5 that the prosperity that we experience as individuals is not always in material gain, but in a just and fair society where resources are not squandered. So this is what we need in Nigeria. However, unfortunately, Nigeria faces a lot of challenges that hinders us from attaining sustainable prosperity. One of which is the over-reliance on oil, because ever since the 1970 oil boom, Nigeria has dangerously relied on oil. Until now, oil still contributes over 70% of our revenue, according to NBS report in 2023. And the Bible warns us against this in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2, that invest in 7, in 8, for you do not know what disaster might fall upon the nation, urging us to diversify our ventures and not focus on a single source of income as a nation. Countries like Rwanda, Ghana, Kenya, which are other African countries, have diversified and they've paid more attention on their taxation system. And now their tax to GDP ratio, that to GDP rate is around something and averaging 18%, whereas Nigeria still lag at 10.8%. The second problem is the informal sector gap. Now, according to NBS report in 2023, over 65% of workforce in Nigeria falls under informal sector, and these people are not paying tax, not out of defiance, but the system ignores them. And Leviticus 19:15 says that we should judge everyone equally, which means even those that are formerly enough to be in the taxation system are being overburdened with tax from the federal, state, and local levels. The next problem is the weak tax morale, which is caused by the outdated and the corrupt administration. How do I mean? Now, let's be realistic. Why should a company paying tax now, but security for them is self-sponsored, electricity is self-sponsored, and even all the things that they are using to run their business are self-sponsored. So why do you think they need to pay taxes? Because they are not seeing all these developmental results, visible developmental results, so their tax morale are low. And this is caused by the outdated and the corrupt administration. Outdated in the sense that many states in Nigeria still uses paper method and manual method to write receipts and pay taxes. And this creates loopholes for those who are hungry for bribes to take advantage of, because the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 40:40 that let all things be done decently and in order. So the Leviticus 19:35 too reminded us that we should not use dishonest scale to measure, and we know that all these systems and these methods are dishonest. So why not re-strategize and reform all this? So with all these challenges being identified, what are the things we can do? In June 2025, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu passed there's now a new tax reform. So I would like to critique my recommendation, show us the strength of these reforms and how they could have done it better. The first is there should be a digital integration of tax identification number and national identification number. How will this help us achieve sustainable prosperity? Now, the proper linkage of these two will create transparency, reduces tax evasion, because the government will be able to track each and everybody through their national identification number, which is linked with their tax identification number. And in the new tax reform, there is now a new policy there that VAT fiscalization and mandatory electronic invoice, which shows that the system is going digitally. That is very, very good. But the proper linkage of these two is still important. The next reform on my list is the incorporation of these informal sectors. So these people need to be brought into the system. We can remember in Luke 3, when John was preaching about repentance, the people asked him, even the tax collectors asked him that what should they do? He did not stop them from collecting those taxes. Rather, he told them that they should not overcharge. So these people should be brought into the system but should not be overcharged, because all things should be done decently and in order. Now, there's an exemption threshold in these new tax reforms now that says from SMEs from 25 to 100 million, which is very, very good, because it reduces the burden on the SMEs and it increases and encourages entrepreneurship. But the active registration of all these informal sectors still needs to be done. Now, the next of my reform is the strengthening of institutional capacities. Institutional capacities like Federal Inland Revenue Service, soon to be National Inland Revenue Service, they need to be funded with technologies and gadgets to do their job. And not only that, they must be trained on ethical leadership and integrity. Because even Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, which happens to be the chairman of this reform and the brainbox behind all this reform, mentioned something in one of his interviews that all these reforms are nothing if not properly implemented and not properly as embraced by the people. which means that we need those people that will be in this institution should be those who can give stability to a nation. Just like Proverbs 29:4 says that a king gives stability to a nation, but those who are hungry for bribe tears it apart. And definitely we need people who are capable in these sectors. And how do we define people who are capable? Exodus 18:21 reminds us that when Moses led Israelite out of Egypt, Jethro advised him that he should select capable men who to rule over thousands, 50s, 100. And how did he define the capable men? Those who are trustworthy, who are God-fearing, and those who hate dishonest. So these are the people we need in this system to do the job. Now, conclusively, it is we all see that taxation is not just a financial obligation. It is a moral and civic responsibility rooted in biblical preachings and biblical principles of justice, stewardship, and righteousness. As Christians, we are the light bearers of the society. We should have it as a role to promote sustainable prosperity by paying our taxes faithfully, advocating for fairness, and modeling integrity. Likewise, and more importantly, the leaders as well should be accountable, because God reminds us in Malachi 3:5 that he is coming to put everybody who is exploiting the poor on trial. Definitely, the leaders should not take the advantage of this compliance of the people as an advantage to embezzle or to do all sorts of things with the money. They should be accountable. What I'm trying to say in essence is that biblical obedience plus accountability of the leadership plus inclusive tax reform will exalt the nation, just like Proverbs 14:34 says that righteousness exalts the nation, but sins condemn many people. So these three will lead us to sustainable prosperity. And we end by saying, let us arise, both citizens and government alike, to invest in a future where integrity in taxation becomes the foundation for sustainable national prosperity. Thank you very much.